The Boston Red Sox have pulled off one of the late surprises as we gear up for spring training, landing Alex Bregman on a 3-year, $120 million deal. The San Diego Padres make a big splash in free agency, bringing in Nick Pivetta. That and more ahead next, here at The Upside. And welcome into the MLB Hot Stove Daily here at the Upside Sports Network. My name is Michael. Appreciate you guys joining us late on a Wednesday evening. I was holding out hope that we would get a signing of Alex Bregman, and lo and behold, we finally have it. Alex Bregman has agreed to a 3-year, $120 million deal with the Boston Red Sox. Everybody had that one on their bingo card, right? No, I think everybody is a little bit surprised that the Boston Red Sox are the team here, let alone at the total value of this deal. There are 2 opt-outs in this deal, one after the first and another after the second year. An incredible deal here for Alex Bregman, who did have offers in the neighborhood of 6 and 7 years at over $170 million. We knew he was looking to beat the money that Willy Adames got this offseason, but when you're offered $40 million a year to play baseball, obviously if you take the opt-out after the first year and you put up monster numbers in Boston, your value is going to go up. So this is a good bet on himself, and he's getting the bag in the meantime. Worst case scenario, he plays out the 3 years there in Boston, and he's getting $120 million. Even if he signs a 3-year, $50 million deal after this, he'd be equaling some of the longer-term deals that were already on the table for him. So hats off to Alex Bregman and Scott Boras for getting this thing done. They absolutely did a masterclass in this. Let's go ahead and head right over to Twitter here because there are some details here I want to get right into. And the first one here is, look at this one here from Jeff Passan. Alex Bregman's 3-year, $120 million deal with Boston includes deferred money. Okay, that's fine. Here's the surprising part. The $40 million salary is $10 million plus more per year than what other teams were offering. The Red Sox land the best free agent left on the market, etc., etc. No kidding, he's the best free agent left on the market, but $10 million more per year than any other team had on the table? That's significant money here for Alex Bregman, and an obvious reason why he took it. Now, the reporting coming into the day basically said that Boston's brass was split on whether or not to bring in Alex Bregman, period, if he'd be an upgrade for this team, if they wanted to go long-term or not. Clearly, they did not want to go long-term. That's why they offer the big money here. But for him to go to Boston, a team that hasn't really spent in free agency in years, they've added to the rotation this offseason, added to their bullpen, but they really have done nothing to address the right-handed hitter need in that lineup. This certainly fills that need. But as I was saying, the rumors here around Boston were saying all the hot and cold temperature around their interest in Alex Bregman. Obviously, on a short-term deal, they are just fine with it. And I wouldn't be surprised if this deal works out, if Bregman puts up monster numbers, which is possible. I know that Bregman has his detractors out there. Maybe you think he's just a product of the Crawford boxes. What do you guys think the Green Monster is going to do for Bregman's numbers? What do you guys think it's going to do? You think it's going to increase them, decrease them, keep them about the same? I would say at worst it's going to keep those numbers very comparable to what the Crawford boxes did out there in Houston. I'm excited to see the way this lineup ultimately works out. Are they going to play Bregman at third, move Devers over to DH? Are they going to move one of those guys over to first base? What do they do with Casas? What happens at second base if they decide to put Bregman there? Lots of things can now happen here. And the interesting domino after that, check out the tweet above this one. Bob Nightingale, Nolan Arenado can now cross the Boston Red Sox off his list after they bring in Alex Bregman. The Detroit Tigers and Chicago Cubs were other finalists for Alex Bregman. We knew about those two teams. The Blue Jays were never in on Bregman. Sounds like Bregman never really took them seriously as far as the money that, or even being interested in going there. And he was never going back to Houston, and obviously with their standing offer, just wasn't anywhere near the numbers here. But when you look at this offer, again, I want to circle back to this Jeff Passan tweet. $10 million more per season for Alex Bregman. No other team was getting above 30. Wow. I mean, I'm just surprised that the Chicago Cubs didn't step up their offer to at least in the $30 million range. I mean, you have to convince Kyle Tucker to sign in free agency next year, or at least be willing to extend during the year. One of the two has to happen. And while their offense certainly has a better peak performer in it with Kyle Tucker being there, I would say their offense right now is Maybe they're better than last year. Maybe they're worse. They certainly gave up Bellinger and Paredes, two cogs in that offense, and have only really brought in one piece here. They're going to have to count on some of those rookies coming up and making a difference. Maybe the Cubs now shift their attention to Justin Turner. I would not be surprised, though, if Turner ended up with the Seattle Mariners. This is going to be very interesting to see how the rest of the dominoes play out here in the third base market. Arenado, maybe a new market opens up here with the Chicago Cubs. That's always a possibility here. But 3 years, $120 million for Alex Bregman. The other deal before we came on the air, Nick Pivetta, who declined the qualifying offer, seen as a mistake by most of the industry, actually gets a great deal with the San Diego Padres. The deal itself, essentially a 4-year deal with $55 million in it, has opt-outs after the second and third year. He's only going to be paid a $3 million signing bonus and a $1 million salary in year one. Doesn't sound like a whole lot. Year two, $19 million. If you remember what the qualifying offer was, around $21 million or so, he's essentially going to make that over the first couple years of this deal. And he's getting 14, I believe, in the third year of this deal, and I believe another 18 in the last year. We'll have to check on those numbers, but around that number. 4 years, $55 million if he plays out the entire deal. Now, Pivetta certainly has his detractors as well. Was not exactly the cleanest bill of health anyway. Also has some track record of giving up some runs. Not exactly the greatest command, but certainly has the ability to go deep in games if necessary. Now, for the rotation here for the Padres, they've done some very interesting work with the contracts they've negotiated with Michael King and now with Nick Pivetta. Two low-cost salaries that they're bringing in this year tells me that they might be looking to move Dylan Cease very quickly here. Remember, they were looking for an asking price around Colby Mayo, around Basayo anyway from the Orioles. Expect the asking price to remain high with Dylan Cease, but now it seems very apparent that they are going to move one of those starting pitchers. I would lean towards Dylan Cease because it saves them the most money. They're trying to keep their payroll around what it was last year, and that's the one way that they can really do it right now. Appreciate all you guys joining in. If you guys want to hit that like and subscribe, tell us which team you're a fan of, tell us where you're watching from, tell us what you think of the Bregman deal, hit the hearts in the chat, whatever you want to do. Just interact with our channel, hit that like and subscribe. It means a lot to us when you do that. Let's see if we can catch up on a few of these comments here. Holly, welcome in. Cowboys Nation, Mark, JG, Verlis. Appreciate all you guys joining us. What a night. It is true. Heck of a night anyway. Good night in the NBA as well. JG, $40 million. I'm glad the Astros didn't sign Bregman. Overpay. I wouldn't say it's a huge overpay, but it's certainly a lot more than what the rest of the industry was saying. Now, if you look at the $10 million more than what the rest of the market was willing to offer him on any deal, that is an overpay to me. At that point, you're negotiating against yourself. I think that the whole time we've been kind of figuring out why is the market pretty much apparent on where the offers are for Bregman, but why isn't Bregman deciding on a deal here? Every team seems pretty entrenched as to their position. Maybe it's the Red Sox getting up to that number is what he was really looking for. Once they hit that $40 million average annual value, get the deal signed and get it done right now. I think that's what they were really trying to get this thing done for. Now that we're kind of seeing the numbers come out, we'll check in on a couple of others. Turned down $170 million plus for 6 to go to Boston. Interesting. He could have taken another 3 years on that deal to get it over 170. I think he wanted that 3 for 120 and then see if he can go into free agency next year with a bigger platform year. That'd be a good thing for him. Verlis, well, hello. My Cardinals still have Arenado. Yes, they do. But I think with Bregman coming off the board, that clears the board now for the Cardinals. Hey, if you want a third baseman, come get Nolan Arenado. He's the only guy left at the top of the market. Maybe you're looking at guys like Justin Turner who might be able to fill in a little bit here or there. Maybe you're looking at guys on the trade market like Jose Miranda who's had some time over there at third base. But by and large, the biggest piece out there, if you're looking for a bat right now, is Nolan Arenado, not just at third base, but in the entire game of baseball. That's the one guy, if you're looking for a bat right now, that you're going to want to check in with. Let's see. Cowboys Nation, Bregman for not going to the Cubs. Yeah, he's going to be stuck in your Orioles division, my friend. JG, don't get why Boston he's handicapped with the green wall if he opts out after the first season. I'm very surprised he got $40 million. There's no way he should have. As far as the $40 million, that is a little bit high for what I was expecting him to sign. I was hoping maybe a best case scenario for him would have been $35 million is what he might have gotten at the top of the market from a team that was really desperate to bring him in. Maybe an overpay from the Angels if they decided to do that quote-unquote big splash. But I'll say this, $40 million does seem like a little bit of a steep offer, but when you're on a short-term deal like this one here, a little bit surprising here that it went that high. but a short-term deal, you knew the numbers were going to be a little bit higher. It wasn't like Pete Alonso, where you knew Alonso wanted to go back to the Mets, that it's the only team that he was really wanting to go play for. On the other hand, the Houston Astros, we knew Bregman didn't want to go back there. His position had already been filled with Isaac Paredes. There was some rumors, of course, that they could flex out Altuve, they could move Paredes around, however they wanted to figure it out. But if he wanted to go back to Houston, that would remain an option. However, that deal had only $26.7 million average annual value. This is $13 million more per season. So great deal here for Alex Bregman. I was only off 18 hours in my prediction. True. AL East is the best division in the league at the moment, in your opinion? That's a big statement there. I still think the NL West has got to be up there. The NL East has got to be up there, and the AL East has got to be up there as well. I think the two central divisions are far behind. The Orioles, if they add a number one to that rotation, then I'll agree with you there for sure. But I would say with the Dodgers being the heavyweight in the entire league right now, certainly does skew things in their direction, especially when you have the Diamondbacks in that same division who are going to be very competitive. The Padres, I still think, are going to be very good. Giants are looking like they're going to try to push for a wild card. I think they'll fall short. But you look at the AL East, Red Sox are significantly improved. With the moves they've made, they're right there with the Yankees for me as far as tops in this division. Orioles, I think, are going to have a very good regular season, but I have my doubts as far as how they perform in October. If they add a number one, maybe they jump to the front of the line there. But for right now, I would say this move leapfrogs the Orioles in that division. Sorry, Orioles fans. I love this transaction for Boston. They really needed a right-handed bat in that lineup, and they got the best one left on the market in Alex Bregman. Welcome in, Vaster Vinman, Rod, Sean, Chuck. Let's see here. As a Jays fan, I'm really upset. I would be too. I was surprised, especially if you look at the screen here, the Blue Jays never in. I mean, come on, man. If you're the Blue Jays, you can't keep having these things happen where the player isn't taking you seriously as an option. This tells me if the player isn't interested, it's time to move on a lot faster. If the front office is continuing to be led to believe that they're in the running here, that the team needs to start making better decisions as far as what free agents they want to target, which ones they have a legitimate chance to bring in, and who they ultimately sign. It's on themselves. It's all on themselves for setting up this Toronto fan base for failure over the last couple of off seasons with Shohei Ohtani, Juan Soto, ultimately falling short for both of those guys. Roki Sasaki looking like you making the trade for Miles Straw and international bonus pool space because you think you've got to deal with them, and then ultimately, poof, it's gone. How many times are we going to see, hey, Toronto's a real player here, they have the money, and then ultimately fall short? So I feel sorry for you Blue Jays fans. Like I said, this whole offseason, though, is going to hinge on whether or not they convince Vladimir Guerrero Jr. to sign long-term. They get it done, all of this can pretty much be forgiven. A clean slate as you gear up for 25, 26, 27 with your star player under contract. You don't get that extension done, every single day you're going to hear nothing about what does this do to affect Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and his interest in re-signing with you in the offseason. Are you going to reopen extension talks, Vladimir Guerrero Jr.? How does this recent losing streak affect your decision to stay in Toronto? Do you like your new teammates? Do you think your team is doing enough? What do you think of your manager? Do you think they should change the manager? You're going to hear nothing but that in Toronto if they don't get that extension done, and this is just another symptom of the problem there in Toronto. Missing here on Bregman, continuing their couple years long problem now of going after top flight free agents and missing again and again and again. I like the signing of Anthony Santander, don't get me wrong, but there is more meat on the bone this offseason to add another starting pitcher. Instead, they bring in Max Scherzer on a one-year deal. I like Max Scherzer, but if you're looking to show stability of an organization, where's the Jack Flaherty deal? Heck, Nick Pivetta is a Canadian. They could have easily done the deal that San Diego just offered to him. You look at the Bo Bichette as well. He had a terrible year last year, absolutely, but he's another guy that's headed towards free agency. Where's the stability coming from in that Toronto Blue Jays organization? That's my question there. But hats off to the Red Sox for getting this deal done, bringing in Garrett Crochet this offseason, adding Walker Buehler, getting some great depth in that starting staff with Sandoval coming in as well, adding a couple of bullpen arms, Aroldis Chapman to the mix. Now you get the right-handed bat. I'd say they've done everything that they need to this offseason. They've checked every box of what they could have added this offseason. Now they have to go into the regular season and show what they've done. Show the work or have that work pay off with results on the field. Because it's great to go out there and spend the money now. They've been promising fans for years, oh, don't worry, we'll spend. We're going to be all in. We'll get one big name out there for you guys. They finally do it with Alex Bregman. Not just the trade market, but going in free agency and spending at the top of the market like the Red Sox we are all used to growing up with them having David Ortiz, with them getting Manny Ramirez, with them being in competition for Alex Rodriguez at one point. There are big names that they would always be going after. The trades, what's his name? Adrian Gonzalez, Carl Crawford, among several other guys. Josh Beckett. This is a team that was known to get big, high-profile players. Kurt Schilling. And then we were left over the last, 10 years with, hey, we'll go the cheaper route, try to do things in the A's and Rays way. Ultimately, that didn't work out quite so well. They promised the fan base each of the last 2 years things were going to change, and they finally have done it. Hats off to the Red Sox for finally having the cojones to go ahead and get it done. I do worry about them having experience negotiating deals. They do have a former player, highly educated player, running their baseball ops right now. And I wonder if that inexperience in negotiating might have cost them a little bit here, with them having to pay an extra $10 million per season than what any other team was offering. I guess they were really buying this line from what Scott Boras and Alex Bregman's camp had to be telling them, that, hey, you're going to have to up your offer if we're going to sign here. Hey, you're going to have to keep that offer going if you want us to sign here. Once that number crossed that $40 million threshold, obviously Bregman, before they could renege on it, gets the deal done. Absolutely love the deal for Boras and for the Alex Bregman camp. For the Red Sox, the only good thing about this is that it's a short-term deal. If it doesn't go well, at least it's only 3 years. But you're still paying $40 million, even with the deferrals. I get it, it helps a little bit. But $10 million more per season than what the next highest offer was. Wonder if that inexperienced negotiating big free agent deals really bit them here with the Boston Red Sox. Let's update our page here just to see if any other tweets are coming in at the moment. I'm sure there are many of them. Hopefully X isn't breaking. There we go. Contract structure, $40 million with an opt-out, $40 million with an opt-out, deferrals. Bregman turned down a $171 million offer. Seeing if there's any others. Bob Nightingale, I got to give it to him for having the Tigers and Red Sox as the co-favorites. I did not believe the reports too many that Only and Nightingale were saying that the Red Sox were in there this deep for him. I thought the Cubs were in there the most. Kept hearing the Cubs, the Cubs, the Cubs, the Cubs. And now the Red Sox prove that they really were in there and get the best deal for him, obviously. Doesn't look like too many other news and notes. Let's head over to MLB Trade Rumors just to update our page there. That Pivetta deal that I was mentioning, $1 million this year, signing bonus of $3 million, 19 next year, 14 the following, and 18 the next. So I did have the number right there. It's around 13.75 average annual value. Still a great deal here for Nick Pivetta, getting a long-term deal. We were kind of looking for a deal in the range of what Tyler Anderson got a few years ago from the Los Angeles Angels, and that looks like what he gets here. All right, let's catch up on a few of these comments here. Welcome in, Nando. Appreciate you joining us once again. Does Bregman take the trash can with him? Yeah. That's an era of baseball I can't wait to get rid of. Who's getting Arenado now? Good question. Obviously, the Red Sox are out, so the teams that would be left that the Cardinals reached out to would lead you to believe it's going to be the Yankees or the Los Angeles Dodgers. I wonder if the Cubs circle back here. I wonder if the Detroit Tigers circle back here to try to bring in Nolan Arenado. Dealing within the division, while it's not necessarily unheard of, I wouldn't say trading one of the franchise icons that they've had over the last, 6, 7, 8 years now with the Cardinals would be a wise move for them. But if the Cubs have the best offer on the board, maybe they get the deal done. But I would say it's probably one of the two teams that have been negotiating the longest for him, the Yankees or the Los Angeles Dodgers. Yes, he's not worth $40 million. $40 million is a little strong. I will agree with you, JG, but if that's where the Boston Red Sox saw his market going, I mean, that's what he's worth. You're only paid what you are worth, or you're worth what you are paid, I guess is what the phrase is anyway. But $10 million more than what the next highest offer was, that's incredible to me. Master Van Man, I bet Matt Shaw is happy third base is all but his. I would agree there. I think they're going to bring in some veteran to help him out there early on in the season, but eventually I think that's his to lose. Devers moving to first base, possibly. I haven't heard any details as far as where he will play or anything along those lines, but I'll be sure to check or keep you guys updated on that one. Let's see here. Trash cans of Boston will help Reagan. I don't know about that. I'm relieved he didn't go to the Tigers. Welcome in player time. I thought he'd been a great option for Detroit. Now, if you're a Tigers fan, I would have really loved to have him in there because I think he would have kind of helped turn the page a little bit from that bad signing streak that you've been on with Javi Baez, Jordan Zimmerman, and how the second half of the deal worked out for Miggy Cabrera. But I thought he would have been a good Tiger for them. Would have clicked with A.J. Hinch anyway, but ultimately he decides to go play for another former manager of his anyway in Alex Cora. Let's see here. 242, 16 home runs, and a 68 RBIs. I'm just going to say this. He had a down first couple of months last year, but he looked like the normal Alex Bregman that we saw over the final 4 months of the year. Am I expecting the numbers for Alex Bregman to go up when he's in Boston? I am. I'm not cynical enough to believe that a down first couple of months for Alex Bregman is now the new norm. I will say that he is getting older, that the productive years that he has ahead of him are less than what he's already played. He's 30, 31 years old right now. I'd probably say his prime years are going to be what these 3 years are. At the $40 million he's going to be paid for what hopefully will be his production on the field. But you're certainly giving a premium here when you're $10 million more than what the next highest team was on the market for him. Just surprising here that the lack of skills negotiating a big deal here in Boston cost them this much. But you kind of understand that while Bregman kind of took his time with this decision, he certainly got the best deal for himself. Great job by Scott Boras. So I want to hear all those people who are giving Scott Boras, a hard time over the last couple of months in my chat saying, Scott Boras is bad for baseball. Scott Boras doesn't know what he's doing. Scott Boras is doing a bad job for these players. Look at the Montgomery deal. Look at the Snell deal. I want to hear every single one of those Boras detractors come in my chat right now and say, sorry, Scott Boras. You were right. I was wrong. Let's hear it. I want to hear those apologies. I'm not a fan of Scott Boras. I'm just a fan of great baseball decisions. And he bet on the player, and he got the great contract that he was looking for Alex Bregman. He absolutely, 100%, without a doubt, was absolutely correct in the way he handled this negotiation. Could not have turned out better for Alex Bregman if you tried. He did a great job here. And after being ridiculed all offseason long about how he handled Jordan Montgomery, about how he handled Blake Snell, he did right by Blake Snell, got the long-term deal, added to the deal that he signed last year with the San Francisco Giants, way better than what anybody was expecting Blake Snell would have gotten, even at the top of the market last year. Jordan Montgomery obviously didn't work out. Jordan Montgomery, though, had a long-term deal on the table from the Texas Rangers at a short-term, at a very small value. He chose to turn that deal down. That way, I think he would have had a better year last year if he just stayed in Texas without going into spring training or Boras camp anyway. That I will agree there. That it hasn't worked out for every single player. But by and large, every single free agent he has taken this long with eventually gets the big long-term deal that they were looking for. Just look at Bryce Harper. Just look at Manny Machado that we saw, 4 or 5 years ago? Get those big numbers. Blake Snell last year gets the big number this year. All the successful deals that he's had this offseason, successfully getting a high average annual value for Pete Alonso from the New York Mets, even though it was a one-team market for him in reality because he wanted to go back to the Mets. Boras has done a hell of a job, and I want to see those apologies in my chat. He has done a great job this offseason. I get it. He might be annoying. I get it. You might be frustrated with how he handles negotiations. But guess who hires him? Your favorite player is who hires him. Your favorite team is the guys that are negotiating deals with Scott Boras and eventually sign those big deals with that agent you find so annoying. So let's just give a moment here and say, that's the best agent in baseball. Hats off for a great job he's done getting this deal for Alex Bregman. All right, the Tigers can trade for someone later if needed. I'll agree there. You're going to be booing him this year in Toronto. Cubs messed up. I'll agree with you there. I think the Cubs really missed the boat on this one. Welcome back, Brianna. Let's see here. Got several comments coming in, so I'll try to keep up as quickly as I can. You like the Padres? Good job, Padres. I think it's a great job with the Nick Pivetta deal, the 4-year, $55 million deal. Him and King, I think, are going to stay members of the Padres this year as they try to trim payroll. And then next year, next offseason, those guys are going to be prime trade candidates. I would imagine they're going to try to get an extension done with Michael King. Depending on what those numbers look like, I think we're going to be seeing King's name on the market if they can get an extension done. If not, obviously he'll have his name on the free agent market. But here, for Nick Pivetta, a very cheap deal here for the San Diego Padres. $19 million. This reminds me a lot of the balloon payments that we saw from the Tampa Bay Rays by getting those short-term deals done with their pitchers anyway, that kind of keep the value low, and then all of a sudden, that last year on that option really balloons up, like we saw with James Shields and David Price and all those other guys. Blake Snell, you knew that they were going to be traded because of the numbers that were coming forward. Here with the San Diego Padres, they're not in the same boat as the A's and Rays financially, but with their issues in the ownership right now, funding-wise, you can understand why they don't necessarily want to have their payroll go up too much here. And while they may still trade away Dylan Cease, I think this contract was made to be traded for Nick Pivetta. If he performs great this year, then that $19 million salary, 3 years essentially for $51 million is what would be left on that deal. He would be a good option for somebody who wanted a short-term deal with a starting pitcher in free agency. Kind of fills in that 3-4 void in somebody's rotation. Has the upside of a number 2. I don't think anybody would mistake him for a number 1. But this contract, I believe, was made to be traded. Sean, hold on. Cowboys Nation, he's not going to Seattle. As far as Justin Turner, I think there's a good chance he could. You like the Padres. Good job, Padres. Sean, would the Cardinals trade Arenado to the Cubs? I would say there's a outside chance that that's a possibility. Best offer on the table from the Cubs. If it's better than the others, maybe he would go there. Mark, welcome from Waterloo, Ontario. Appreciate you. You're expecting 10 inches of snow? That's just a little bit there, my friend. They're asking for far too much in return, maybe not for the Mets, etc. But Elias can't look a fool again, a.k.a. the Rogers trade. Cease isn't Rogers, but Mayo for a rental. That's kind of my thoughts there as well. I would prefer them to go out the trade deadline and try to bring in a number 1 starter. I think the ship has sailed as far as the number 1 guys being moved at the moment. I think once you get to the trade deadline, you'll know a lot more about where teams stand with Pablo Lopez, with Sandy Alcantara. There was a deal with the Marlins as well. They added another starting pitcher, bringing in Cal Quantrill. Another deal that is made to be traded at the deadline. But I would say for Dylan Cease, if they're asking that much for Mayo, Basayo, etc., that's way more than what Dylan Cease is worth right now. Unless you're able to negotiate a long-term deal, I don't see the reason why you make that trade, so I'm with you there, Cowboys Nation. Master Vinman, who do you think the Cubs would give up for Nolan? I would say if the Cubs Cardinals eat about $30 million of that deal, probably talking about maybe a Double-A prospect, a pitching prospect from Double-A from the Cubs, and maybe a couple of lower-level lottery tickets is what it would take to get done. Welcome in, Doc Ghost. Appreciate you joining us. VPCZX, welcome back. Could Houston revisit Arenado? They could, but I don't think it would be a great fit for them. I think they're going to go in free agency and just see if they can pry away another outfielder to fit within that budget right now. They're trying to do things on a shoestring budget. Arenado would completely go over that, and the only player they were willing to do that for was Alex Bregman. He is now off the market. Rafe, Rockies carry the NL West for best division. They keep them from being the best division. I would agree there's more talent as the worst team in the AL East being the Toronto Blue Jays. Worst case scenario, I think they finished with 65 wins. Rockies, I think, could finish with 45, 55 wins. I would say as far as, which team is worse, I'd say the Rockies out of those two would be the far worst team. Next move for Chicago, Sean, I would say adding another bat to that lineup. I've been saying they needed another impact bat this entire offseason and have yet to do so. I really hope they add somebody, even if it's Justin Turner. I still think that would be an improvement over what they're working with right now. But we'll see who they turn their attention to now that they've missed on Alex Bregman. Doc, do you think the Yankees are going to make a trade for third base? I think they're right in the mix for one right now with Nolan Arenado. It depends on how much money the Cardinals are willing to eat, A. And 2, if they're able to find a taker for Marcus Stroman before they open camp, B. Now, pitchers and catchers have reported to camp already. This time is usually where you see trades kind of quiet down for a minute or two, and then come all the way back up right before the start of the regular season as teams try to figure out their active roster, their 40-man, who they're going to take off, etc., who's having a great spring, who's going to go to the IL. You're going to see a lot of roster manipulation over the final week of spring training. That's when you see a lot of trade talk. But I would say the Yankees are certainly scouring the market for third base, and Nolan Arenado remains one of their top targets. Bregman moving to second base or shortstop, I would guess probably second base out of those two. They got a long-term answer at short already in Mayer that's coming. If they want to move Devers off of third base and put a better defensive third baseman than Alex Bregman over there, that would be where I would play him. I'd put Devers at DH or at first base. Casas, I would try to trade at this point and see if I could get a team to bite down on the contract of Yoshida and take Casas as the incentive to bring him in and see what kind of return you could get. There was the rumblings earlier this offseason of a trade between the Red Sox and Mariners. I wonder if that trade talk is revisited, sending Casas and Yoshida to the Mariners in exchange for Luis Castillo. Now, the Mariners have made it clear that they want to keep this rotation together, but the Mariners were the ones that were the team that was reaching out to the Red Sox in negotiations as far as Luis Castillo. With the deal now being done with Bregman, I wonder if the Red Sox come back and counter with that offer. That would give them two major league hitters going into that lineup there in Seattle. I think that would be a good price for them to be able to get here for Luis Castillo. And essentially the money would be about a wash with Yoshida's deal here as well. So maybe we'll see some trades here after all. But as far as the Mariners, they say they're not willing to move Luis Castillo. This is, I think, the last chance they'll have to do so before the start of the regular season. So we'll see how true to form they stay. Can someone hold me? I need a hug. Sorry, man. Blue Jays are just going through it this offseason. Again, missing out. I love it. Anything to force Elias as Rosenstein's hand. Hugs, okay. Vlad gone. Oof, that could be true. Honestly, they have to get that extension done, and I've heard nothing as far as positive movement on that. Who knows? Maybe no news is good news, but from my experience, as far as how these things usually work, I think Vladdy is headed towards free agency next year. And I don't think he's necessarily going to, take Toronto off his list as far as destinations. But I wouldn't say that they're going to be the prohibitive favorites, at least at the moment. They have no long-term security as far as where this team is going. The biggest draw for him to go there is the money that they're going to be giving him is going to be on par with what the other teams will have out there. And that he likes playing there in Toronto. Has gotten comfortable there. Has kind of gotten good roots there as well. I don't think that would preclude him from, favoring other teams, though. I think other teams financially are going to be right there with the Blue Jays, and it's going to be a very difficult case to make if you're a Toronto Blue Jays front office member to say, hey, Vlad, I know we have all this history with you. Don't you want to sign this big long-term deal? All Vladdy has to do is look around and say, who's going to be here with me even this season? So the future is a big question mark here for Toronto, and with the no news coming out around Vladimir Guerrero Jr., this tells me that there's very little movement as far as talks between the two sides. I'm sure they're trying to get a deal done before the start of spring training. That's right around the corner. I just don't think it's going to happen. Anthony, welcome back. Do you think the reason why Bregman and Alonso took the deal as they did is because they were overvaluing their actual worth and they realized no team was going to give them a long-term deal that they wanted? Those are two very different cases. I think Alonso was a one-team market. He wanted to go to the Mets. Everybody knew he wanted to go to the Mets. And he wasn't going to take a discount from another team. And I don't think he was even considering a long-term deal in reality from other teams. That's why the Mets had all the leverage here. But I was surprised to see Alonso get the average annual value that he did out of the Mets. Good on him. Bregman, however, $10 million more than what the next highest team was offering as far as average annual value. That's why he took that short-term deal. I'm sure the long-term money would have been great for him. But you're getting 3 years at $120 million. Say he underperforms all 3 years, even if he just puts up similar numbers to what he did now. Say he hits 15 home runs, 240, and only hits, 60 RBIs. Maybe he still gets a 3-year, $50 million deal after this one is over. And if he does, that would be equal to what the long-term deals were already on the table. Bregman is betting on himself and getting a guarantee of what he's going to get in that salary, making sure he's got his future locked up. Even if he has an injury this year, I think his numbers are going to do great there in Boston either way. But I love the deal for Alex Bregman. I think the inexperience negotiating long-term contracts or even short-term deals with the Boston Red Sox at this high of a level here really cost them here, and they got played, schooled, taken to church by Scott Boras. He did a master class in that Alex Bregman negotiation. He knew the Red Sox weren't going to go long-term, so why bother really going for it when the Red Sox, their best offer was 6 for $170? Still better, by the way, than what the Houston Astros had on the table. But when you're talking 3 for 120, why not bet on yourself and say, hey, if I have at least 3 decent years or 2 decent years in an injured year, I think I could still get 3 for 50 on the market. And hey, if I have a great platform year this year, I opt out of the deal, I still bank $40 million, and then I get an average annual value of, say, $30, $35 million as the price for poker continues to go up on a longer-term deal. So, love the deal from top, bottom, all the way around. Alex Bregman and Scott Boras did a great job in this negotiation. All right, let's try to catch up on a few of these other comments here. JG, Tigers offered him 170. He didn't want to play in Detroit. I don't think that was necessarily it. I have yet to see a report anyway that said he did not want to play in Detroit. Let me see if there's any updates on that one. I don't see any headlines as far as why he didn't sign there. Sidney Crosby, of course, setting up the winner in the Four Nations tournament today. But as far as the not wanting to play in Detroit, I don't believe that. I think he really wanted to go there. The question is, what the actual money was going to be on the short-term deal that they had offered. I know Detroit had a short-term deal on the books or had an offer out to him of a short-term deal, but nobody apparently was in the neighborhood of $40 million. That's why it didn't get done with Detroit more than anything else. Adkins is the problem, RGM. I think the instability of the contracts, the performance on the field is the biggest problem. And if you believe that it's all done with Ross Adkins and Shapiro at the top there in Toronto, then so be it. But ownership, from the reports that we're getting from some of the Toronto media, would lead you to believe that the front office there is a lot more secure than what we originally thought going into this offseason. Now, that could all change with one poor offseason, and this offseason has gone pretty badly for Toronto. If they don't get Vladimir Guerrero Jr. signed long-term, whether it be now, before the season, as an extension, at some point during the year, if they don't get a good year this year, and if they don't get him signed in free agency, things could change rapidly there in Toronto. GMs do as they're told, very true. $40 million is insane. I would agree, it is a little high. Red Sox trying to win, gotta respect it. They're finally, that's the part you're missing there, Rafe, they're finally trying to win. They're finally investing in free agency. They're finally acting like the Red Sox we all grew up with. They're finally getting their act together in that front office. They're finally spending in free agency. They're finally doing things the way we all expect the Red Sox to act, instead of acting like somebody they're not. They are not the Tampa Bay Rays. They are not the Oakland Athletics or Sacramento Athletics or whatever they want to be called now. They are the Boston freaking Red Sox. They're supposed to be competing at the top of the division with the New York Yankees. Win, lose, or draw, no matter how you see it, if you're an Orioles fan, Blue Jays fan, or Rays fan, we all grew up with the Yankees and Red Sox at the top of that division. And I'm not saying that's how it's supposed to be, but I'm saying that's how it's best for baseball. Am I saying it's rigged for the Red Sox and Yankees to be in that position? Heck no. Otherwise, it would have been, even with them doing this the way they have been, acting like the Rays and A's. But them finally starting to act like themselves again is going to put them right at that top of that division. And they really have a good young prospect base to work with as well. Roman Anthony could be a Rookie of the Year candidate. And I love the addition here of Alex Bregman. Even if you think he's not a great player, he's going to be great in that lineup as a right-handed hitter, giving them some depth in that lineup for them. And I think he's going to be great with that green monster. I don't think they're trash. I think they're going to be very, very good. I'll be heckling them a few times. I hope so. You are an Orioles fan. You won't be able to sleep tonight. It's going to be a lot of sleepless nights, my friend. Going to be a lot for you. Sean, what's next for the Cubs? Do they sign another third baseman like Justin Turner or someone else? That's kind of where I'm leaning. I'm not sure if they get Turner specifically, because I think there's a good chance he ends up in Seattle. But I would expect them to add another middle infield type of player who can also play third base. Maybe they move Birdie over there, who has some experience floating around the diamond a little bit. There is also the possibility of trading for Nolan Arenado. But if they don't go the trade route, maybe they go a little bit cheaper on the free agent market and see if they can add a third baseman. Just to kind of show you who's left, for those of you wondering, who could the Cubs actually go after they miss here. Let's go ahead and pull up the free agent list. Third baseman, there's not a whole lot of great names here. Luis Urias might be the one guy here. Nick Senzel, Paul DeJong. I'm not sure if DeJong is already signed, though. Jose Iglesias, you could probably play him over there at third base. Whit Merrifield, you could probably play him over there. The first base guys, Joey Gallo came up as a third baseman. I don't think you could hold it down anymore, though. Yuli Gurriel, I think he played a little bit of third base, out of position anyway. His normal position is first. Looking at the outfielder, see if anything else would make sense for them. Whit Merrifield, I already mentioned him. Nobody else out of that group besides maybe Eddie Rosario. Yeah, nobody else out of that mix, or nobody else out of that group of players really makes sense. Maybe Matt Carpenter, but at 39, I don't think that's a great fit for them either. But I would say as far as the guys that are left, there's slim pickings. Maybe Jose Iglesias would be the best of the guys that are left for you there as well. You're worth what somebody is willing to pay you, exactly. JG, their projected lineups, Bregman playing second. I know that's what a lot of networks have put out there over the last couple of weeks. I'm just curious what they do with Devers now. Devers, I don't think, has taken many reps over there at first base. That would be something I could see them trying to do. I think for a better defensive alignment, Bregman would be best over there at third base. And maybe that's something they revisit next year if Bregman's still on the team. But for right now, just kind of ease of sliding him into the lineup, probably second base would make the most sense. They already have an option set at third base. They already have an option at first base. If they put Bregman at second, Trevor Story maybe goes to DH. Is there, overpaid DH option there? That would be a possibility for them too. You doubt Devers moves, but we shall see. That's kind of my worry as well. I would rather see Bregman over there, but we'll see. Will Bregman only be on the Red Sox for one season? There's a good chance of that. At $40 million average annual value, he's going to get paid this year. Now, if he has a great year in Boston, they go on a run, win the division, maybe advance in the postseason. I'm not saying they're going to be a World Series favorite, but I certainly would say that they've addressed every single need that they have. Now, are they better than every team in the American League? I would say not. I would still say they're in that same conversation with the Yankees and Rangers as far as the best in the American League. Astros can hold a candle to this conversation. Orioles could be in this conversation. Tigers, Guardians, Royals could be in this conversation along with the Mariners. But that's about it. I would say the Red Sox have certainly improved the most in that division. Orioles have some work to do. Yankees have done a nice job this offseason recuperating from the loss of Juan Soto. But overall, it's going to be a bit of a dogfight there at the top of that division. But as far as him staying with the Red Sox for only 1 year, if he has a great year, he could go into free agency next year and just see what he could make, or renegotiate and possibly get an extension with the Red Sox and rip up the final option years if he really has a great season there in Boston and carries them to a playoff victory or two. Who would be the favorite to sign Bregman if he opts out? Good question there. I think it'd be any number of teams. It could be anybody from the Washington Nationals, who are going to be spending next year. Could be a team like the Mets, who are looking to make some other additions as well. Could be the Blue Jays looking to bring him in there as well. Boston could look to re-sign him. You never really know, but it's still way too early to get, we just got the signing here of Alex Bregman. It's too early here to figure out where he's going to go next offseason if he does opt out. Boris is awful for baseball, Cowboys Nation. I get it. There's a lot of fans out there who don't really like it, but come on, you got to give the man his props here. Got quite a few comments rolling in. We'll see if we can catch up on a few of these. Hold your breath on those apologies. I'm just saying he's earned them. I'll put it that way. King Tut to Seattle. So Arenado will go to the Yankees. I think that's a good possibility at this point. I didn't cover your last name. Okay. Can we talk about how bipolar this flipping winter is here in Texas? Going from 80 to 20, going to snow next week. Yeah, it's been crazy weather down here in Texas. Woo-wee, welcome in. If Mike Trout waived his no-trade clause, who would the Angels trade him with? Nobody. He has no value right now as a trade commodity, even if he waived his no-trade. Nobody wants that contract. Nobody wants his inability to stay healthy. Nobody is taking Mike Trout. There is zero interest in Mike Trout. Now, say you pay down, half of that salary, then we can start having a discussion. But there's no way Artie Moreno's going to eat money on that deal and trade him away. So, not happening. Rod, Arenado, I think, will end up in the Bronx. I think that's a good possibility. Astros could grab Urias, who's a solid glove at third base, and a solid bat at the bottom when he gets at bats. What else would be needed to land Framber for Urias, Povich? Urias would be a solid glove. I would say for the Astros, that'd be a good depth option for them, but they already got one in Luis Guillorme. As far as that Luis Urias going to Houston, I don't think that would really have much legs at this point. They already have their insurance policy there. But as far as the willing to move on from Framber Valdez, I've heard nothing as far as the extension talks there. Much like with Vlad Guerrero Jr. up in Toronto, I would like to see where those negotiations are once we get into spring training. But with pitchers and catchers reporting already for almost all teams, and with the spring training right around the door for the rest of all the players to get there, I'd expect these negotiations to pretty much wrap up with those guys. And it looks like they could probably be headed towards free agency. In that event, if Houston gets off to a poor start, as say 10 to 15 games out of first place in the division, there would be a good chance I'd say Framber has a chance to be moved. But until that happens, I think he stays there in Houston. Chris, you're saying keep Casas. That's a possibility. I think that would be the best option for them to improve their offense. I'm not sure if the trade that I mentioned there makes a lot of sense for Boston at this point with the additions that they've made on that pitching staff. Castillo sure would help out their rotation, but they already have some good reinforcements coming in. I'm not sure they need to go that direction to add another starting pitcher, but it certainly would help address a big need for them as far as a front of the rotation starter, along with Garrett Crochet and Bayo, etc. They'll for the asking price. Okay. You think Texas will sign Finnegan? I think there's a good chance of that. Graveman, I think, is the other one to keep an eye on there in free agency. I'd say the trade market is also a good spot to keep an eye on. The Padres are looking to move on from Robert Suarez anyway. Jason Adam I would have interest in as well. Luis Ariz. There's a lot of good pieces that are on that Padres team that with the ties that Texas has, the front office there in San Diego, I'm surprised we haven't seen more deals between them and Texas. But I think there's so many players that just line up as far as a trade fit for Texas right now that I'd be surprised if the two didn't come together on some trade this season. So if it's now before spring training or if it's during spring training or during the season, remains to be seen. But they got a lot of talent on that roster that fits with what the Rangers are looking for right now. And the Rangers have the right pieces that the Padres are looking for as well. They just match up as really good trade partners right now. Rod, Jays are a mess now, and I also think he'll be gone next year. The Jays are a bit of a mess. When I say bit, that's a little bit of an understatement, my friend. Santander, good long-term piece. Like that for you. But outside of that, I mean, it's been a lot of nothing for you this offseason. Sure, you bring in Max Scherzer. Love Mad Max's competitiveness. I think it's going to raise the performance of all the players on your team. But is it going to be enough to get them into the postseason? Do you think you're going to be trading Max Scherzer at the trade deadline because he wants to be on a competitive team and you're not in contention at that point? All of these things can be true there in Toronto, and so things could go off the rails very quickly. I would expect questions to already begin once Vlad Guerrero gets there for the first day of spring training, if he hasn't signed that long-term deal, for all the questions to begin. Hey, Vlad, why didn't you get an extension done? What's the talks, or where are the talks at? Are you still talking with them? If you're not talking with them, why are you not talking with them? Why did you decide to set this deadline on the talks here? Are you going to reopen them? When are you going to reopen them? Why won't you reopen them? Since you're not willing to reopen negotiations, will you reopen them again at the start of the regular season once you've already gotten your spring training out of the way? Just want to get the team ready to go, and why don't you reopen negotiations at that point? As you're gearing up for the season, what do you think of the team around you? Is it enough for you to continue to stay a member of Toronto? So many questions, and that's just the first day of spring training if they don't get that extension done. So big question marks this offseason there in Toronto. If Bregman opts out after the second season, would be the favorites to sign him. Just to address that one for you, Sean, I would say that the Cubs would be in that negotiation. I would say the Nationals as well. I think Bregman could fill a bunch of holes there on that team depending on which places they feel like they need to have some improvement. I think the Mets could be a fit there. I think the Yankees will have some money freed up a little bit. They may be a suitor. There's a lot of suitors for Alex Bregman next offseason. Rafe Garcia hurt. Sucks, man. He was my breakout prediction for the Pen. I don't know what that injury makes it. Feel like his tenure won't go well, but time will tell. I know, Rafe. A lot of Dallas area fans are bit right now by the injury bug with how Luka was, how his career ended there in Dallas. Not playing for the final month of his, Mavericks tenure, getting traded, and then within a week being back in the lineup for the Lakers and looking like the centerpiece of that team for the next 10 years. You bring in Anthony Davis, has a great first half, gets injured in the third quarter. Looks like he's going to be out for 4 weeks or so. Gafford's going to be out for a couple more weeks as well now. Just a lot of injuries in the Dallas sports scene. Dak Prescott missed over half the season with an injury. A lot of the Rangers were injured last year, especially in that starting rotation. A lot of injury risks in the Dallas sports fandom anyway. But as far as Garcia, I would say it does hurt to have him go into spring training like this and immediately go down. Reinforces the need for them to acquire another closer at the back end of that bullpen. I wonder just how urgently they're going to push for that now. Maybe a Suarez deal happens a little bit quicker than might otherwise have happened. Maybe they could have waited until the end of spring training for this one, but I think the Rangers still recognize the need to bring in a veteran closer there, and I think they will go get it. J.G. Bregman was drafted by the Red Sox in 2012, but went to LSU instead, ended up with the Astros. Good point there. So they have been interested in him before, but again, this is a very different front office than was in there at the time in 2012. Rod, management failed us here, especially if we don't sign Vladdy to a long-term deal. I would say that's true as well. I'd say ownership as well has kind of led the charge here for what the direction of this franchise is and how badly the last 2 years have really gone. The team hasn't really recognized the flaws. They haven't recognized that, yes, there was underperformance, but you can't exactly count for them to go back to the mean, to expect this team to perform better just because you say they will. And I think that's been the primary problem there in Toronto is they expected the problem to really solve itself. The trade of Varsho, I think, was a complete miss for me. I think they should have moved on from Kirk. I think they should have gotten a Guerrero deal done much sooner than this right now. But with him going to free agency, big question marks there still in Toronto. You hope they fire Adkins. We'll see. 40 million a year is massive. Yes, it is, Chris. They robbed Boston. Absolutely, I agree. They finally are spending money. That is the Red Sox. They're finally getting back to being the Red Sox we all grew up with. Cubs could still make a big move in free agency, and they do trade for Cease. Could the Cubs still make a big move in free agency? No. In free agency, not a chance. There's nobody left in free agency besides maybe an Andrew Heaney. That would be a, quote, big name at this point. On the trade market, though, they could, of course, go after Nolan Arenado. They could go after Dylan Cease or whoever they want to go after. But as far as a big bat to go in that lineup, I don't see one on the horizon there in Chicago, and that, to me, is their biggest need. Alex makes us better offensively and defensively. I would agree there, Chris. I think your Red Sox are going to do much better this year. I like the acquisitions you have in your pitching staff, bringing in Crochet and Buehler, or Buehler anyway, especially in that starting pitching staff. I think Buehler's going to play up for that Red Sox rotation. I think he's going to get a long-term deal next year, and we'll see how he performs. I think him getting the last out in the World Series, really means a lot, and would be a great get for them. Let's see here. Jeff Passan, the expectation is that Bregman will play second base. Bob Nightingale, Cubs offered 4 years, $120 million. So they did get up to $30 million on a short-term deal in their Chicago. That's not a bad offer, but the Red Sox absolutely took everybody and just completely blew them out of the water. $10 million more than the next closest team. That's an incredible deal there for Alex Bregman. 3 years, $120 million. Big money there. Cowboys Nation, I remember watching the Orioles run the show in the mid-70s till the late 80s. Orioles were a good team for a long period of time, but I do remember, basically from the 90s through, 2014, 2015, 2016, somewhere in there, is when the Red Sox really were competing with the Yankees for every single big free agent. Who did they sign with this time? Who got the big starting pitcher? Who was the other couple of other starters that signed there in free agency? They had a couple of them around that time. There was that one pitcher from Toronto at one point that went to the Yankees, I think. David Wells going back and forth between the two teams. A lot of history there is all I'm trying to say is, and it's good to see the Red Sox finally start acting like the Red Sox we expect them to be. Devers would have to play DH. Looks like he's going to be their third baseman. Looks like Breggy will be at second, unfortunately. I would really have liked to see them move, Devers off of third base to improve their defense overall. Leave Story out there at second base or somebody along those lines. Mayer, of course, coming up as the shortstop. Cassis probably your first baseman. If you trade away Cassis, then maybe Devers is your first baseman. But I think their best defensive third baseman will be Alex Bregman. All right, Devers is the face. He'll dictate, or you won't get the best Devers. Devers is still the face of the Red Sox. I'll agree there. D-Rod, welcome in. Appreciate you joining us. Bregman deal good for Sox. Short term with opt-outs. The player needed in the lineup. True, I'll agree with you there. But I would say it's an even better deal for Scott Boras and Alex Bregman. I would say it's a great deal because you're getting $10 million more than what the next highest offer was per year not just $10 million total on the contract, $10 million more per season. Cubs had the second highest offer as far as average annual value from what I've seen so far at 4 years, $120 million total. That's $30 million per season. This deal with the Red Sox is $40 million per season. They did a great job getting the inexperienced Red Sox front office to give them the contract they were looking for, and good on them for getting that deal done. Could the Cubs trade for Dylan Cease? I would say there's a good chance of that, Sean. Jonathan, welcome in. Welcome in. Appreciate you joining us once again. Good night. The Red Sox needed a splash signing for the fans. Yes, they did. They kept promising that they were going to do it in free agency, not just this year, but last year as well, and they failed to deliver last year. They made the trades this offseason, but they never really spent the money in free agency, and now they can finally go to the fan base and say, hey, look, we did what you wanted. We signed a big key free agent. He's going to be the big right-handed bat we've been looking for in this lineup, and we at least got the short-term deal here. So let's hear it. You guys have been giving us grief this entire time here. We finally added a guy you wanted. Let's hear that support now for that Red Sox front office. Now they did delay the signing as long as they could, and I think the inexperience really cost them because they gave up $40 million per season here to Bregman. But other than that, everything else here works in their favor. They get the short-term deal here. They get the big bat in their lineup. Defensive versatility in Bregman. All those are wins for the Red Sox, and he brings a winning culture with him along with Walker Buehler. That's what I'm looking for most out of that Red Sox group that they have now. A lot of young talent coming. Abreu probably going to be moving over to left field at some point this season, I would imagine. Roman Anthony probably going to be your future out there on right. You got Duran out there in center. First base, you got Casas. Second base now, Bregman's. Shortstop, you're going to have Mayer at some point. And then at third base, you'll have Devers. Behind the plate, you have, Wong behind the plate. And you're probably going to have Yoshida as your DH right now, along with Story. This is a pretty good ball club. Their rotation's pretty good. They got some good young pitchers. Bullpen could be a little bit iffy here and there, but the pitchers that don't make it into the rotation will be the long men in the bullpen. I think they've built a really nice ball club this year and should be very competitive in a tough AL East division once again. Cruz, welcome in. Bregman, great signing for the Red Sox. I'll agree with you there. Gives them everything that they were needing to kind of finish off this great offseason that they've had. This is an A-plus offseason now for the Red Sox. I'll give them an A++. They're right up there with some of the best off seasons we've seen this year. Crochet coming in, Buehler coming in, Sandoval coming in, Chapman coming in for that bullpen as well, and now you address the needs in that lineup by bringing in Alex Bregman. Love the deal there. They also have the minor league deal of Abraham Toro. If he works out great, gives you some depth in that lineup as well. They have some trade chips now that they can possibly trade in Casas if they find a right deal, if they get a number one type starting pitcher back. Maybe they make a move there. They have some flexibility now at that team with the signing of Alex Bregman. Sad thing is, Michael, Vlad is seeing all of this and is looking at the Jays organization missing out on premier talent, always coming up short. He have to be thinking they are serious about winning. Have serious questions about it, yes, I will agree with you there. This is not a team in Toronto that's built for the long haul. They have some big question marks going forward. D-Rod, O's were winning in the late 60s too. They won in 70, beat the Reds. O's were a good team back then. I'm not saying they weren't. I'm just saying that the Red Sox were always seen, to me anyway, as a team that would be competing for the top level of guys along with the Yankees. Yankees, of course, had the biggest budget ever. And then the Red Sox finally figured out how to go after free agents in like the early 90s or so. Some of those deals didn't work out in the early 90s, but they certainly did in the late 90s and early 2000s. They finally break the curse and win a series there. Tigers offered 6 for $171 opt-out after the second year. I did see that one. Rod, eating a lot of chocolate now because you're frustrated. I hear you, my friend. Poor Cody. Stephen Jordan, welcome in. Appreciate you joining us. Just re-signed Vlad. If not, I'll be protesting outside the Rogers Center. If they don't get that extension done with Vlad Guerrero Jr., I'm not sure what the long-term future holds for the Toronto Blue Jays, aside from this. That they're not going to have much as far as a long-term pieces on their roster. That they could sign a bunch of guys in free agency next year if Vlad Guerrero does leave, and they could turn this thing around. But as far as having a stable organization year to year, having that great piece in the center of your lineup and then tinkering around the edges and having an identity as an organization, they don't have that right now. And they could lose what's left of their identity if Vlad Guerrero Jr. leaves in free agency. Then it could go into a full teardown, full rebuild situation. And this thing could devolve very quickly there in Toronto. If they start having a poor season, especially in the month of April, Not saying the month of April is everything. We saw teams have a horrible April and ultimately win the World Series in years past. But I am saying is that the questions that you're going to be hearing from to Vlad Guerrero that start on day one of spring training are only going to grow louder with every single day that passes. And if you get off to a poor start to the season, this is a Blue Jays team that could crater under that pressure. Now, sure, they're going to have some good veterans on that roster now that might be able to hold up to it a little bit better than others. But there's going to be a lot of youth on that team as well. They're going to have some high-priced guys that are going to be expected to perform, and I don't think they're going to be able to perform at the high level we're expecting them to. And I think this Toronto Blue Jays team could go down the tubes very, very quickly. And we'll have to see what kind of team comes out the other side. But Vlad Guerrero is going to be where it begins and ends this offseason for me for that Blue Jays team. All right, Rafe, don't forget to leave your faucet dripping for the freeze. True. D-Rod, what turned it around in the 90s for the Red Sox with the trade for Ortiz? To me, it happened a little bit earlier than that. I would say Manny Ramirez coming to Boston had a big effect. Ortiz coming had a big effect. Nomar Garciaparra, early on had a big effect. And then, of course, he wasn't there for the championship, obviously. But he was part of the reason why that team really started to turn it around. That and their focus on pitching. Pedro Martinez obviously helped change things on that side of things for them, too. Rafe, Vladdy, Bregman, Tucker, all of them in the Mets next year, and they're all going to have their best career years just to make the Astros sad. Yee. I don't know about that, if all three would go. I would say maybe one of those three goes to the Mets next offseason, especially if Pete Alonso opts out of a deal. I'd say Vladdy might be the favorite there to go to the Mets. If Alonso stays there, I think Tucker will probably be the one that I think they target because they've got a lot of middle infield options that could play over there at third, second, short, wherever they want to utilize them. And if Alonso has a poor year, they'll utilize one of those guys over there, kind of platoon with him there. But I would say Tucker right now as far as a very early favorite, but don't hold me to it. We're still 12 months away from anything. Well, I'd say 10 months away from things like that. Alex, I'm glad the Cubs didn't give Bregman $40 million. That's insane. Red Sox overpaid. I'll agree with you there, is that when the rest of the market is around $30 million, at that point you realize you're negotiating against yourself, and Boras did a master class in getting this deal done with the Red Sox. Just your dream scenario? True, I hear you. All right, let's go ahead and head over to X and just see if anything else is happening at the moment. Backloaded salary for Pivetta. That was the one we were looking at earlier. Rendon is out for a very long time after getting a hip surgery, I believe. Why did he choose Boston? In Fenway, he hit .375 batting average with a 1.24 OPS. That's a huge one. In Houston, he hit .269. Obviously, a small sample size there in Boston, a much bigger sample size there in Houston. Let's say he hits .285. That would still be a big upgrade there in Alex Bregman. Tigers offered 6 for $171. Astros 6 for $156. Did not hear what their nominal upgrade in that offer was, but I'm guessing it was around $160 from a couple of different sources that I saw. Tigers offered $171.5. Nothing else there. All right, let's update our page over here and just see if anything else is happening in the world of baseball. Unspecified amount of deferral money. I don't really care about deferral money because it's basically monopoly money at this point for when teams use that deferral there. D-Rod, did the Sox know what the Cubs were offering? Probably not. But I will say that if the market is telling you that you are a team that's expected to go short term, Tigers are a team that's looking to go short term, he doesn't want to go to the Jays. You know firmly what the offer is from Houston, 6 for $156. That average annual value is around 26.7, 26.8, somewhere in there. The deal with the Cubs, we knew they had offered a 6-year deal with an opt-out after the first year. As far as the value of that deal, reports had it that it was going to be below the 182 that, or whatever the deal was that Willie Adames signed. I think it was 182, somewhere in there. 7 for 182 anyway. We knew that the number was coming in less than that. And we knew the average annual value wasn't necessarily in that $40 million range. So that would give you enough context clues for that Red Sox front office to be able to realize, hey, Scott Boras is really jumping up the price here, and as long as this thing's going in free agency, yes, the price is going to be higher, but is it $10 million more when the end result comes out? That tells me the inexperience there in the Boston Red Sox front office as far as negotiating deals really came into play here. Not saying it's bad, but I am saying that the deal itself, looking at it from the outside in, shows me that the Red Sox lack of negotiating these deals is a part of the reason why the deal came in at the number that it did. I think if they had more experience negotiating this deal would probably have come in a little bit closer to that 30. I'm not saying it'd been right at 30, but I'm saying 35, 36, somewhere in there. Save them an extra $15 million somewhere in there, but we shall see. Astros upgrade was 6 for 170. Interesting. Alrighty. Cross the 1 hour mark here. If you guys want to hit that like and subscribe, got a long day tomorrow. We'll start our spring training series. We'll start with the Cubs tomorrow, now that Bregman is off the board. So for those of you that are Cubs fans, be sure to join us tomorrow during our second half of our live. We'll break down how this offseason really went for Chicago, what options are left on the board for them to do, what options did they miss on. Obviously, Bregman will be a big portion of that discussion there. We'll talk about the Kyle Tucker trade. We'll talk about Bellinger, talk a little bit about Presley. We'll talk a little bit about the needs that are left on this roster, how the lineup stacks up, how this rotation is going to look, the bullpen. We'll get into all of it and what's left in their minor league system, who's left on the free agent board that they could target, what trades could we see, and how do they look during the regular season, how they'll finish in their division, how they'll look in the postseason if they get that far, and kind of give you an idea of what the rest of the year could hold for the Chicago Cubs. But we'll start with the Chicago Cubs. Be sure to join us tomorrow for that discussion. And as usual, we'll keep you guys updated on all the rest from the Major League Baseball hot stove season. If you guys are new here, be sure to hit that like and subscribe. We're going to break down all 30 clubs in 30 days, starting tomorrow with the Chicago Cubs. We'll probably do the Los Angeles Dodgers on Friday, so be sure to join us for that show as well. See if you guys want to join us and hit that like and subscribe. We'll do your favorite team at some point during spring training, so be sure to join us. Follow us on X at UpsideSN and on Facebook at Upside Sports Network. Y'all stay warm out there with temperatures starting to dive again, and y'all stay safe out there, everybody. Appreciate you guys joining us. And again, big news of the day, Alex Bregman goes to the Boston Red Sox, 3 years, $120 million. Huge deal for him. Big win for Scott Boras and Alex Bregman. $40 million a year with opt-outs after the first and second year. And then Nick Pivetta gets the 4-year, $55 million deal he was looking for. Great deal for him. I thought he had missed the boat earlier this offseason when he didn't sign that qualifying offer. Ultimately, he gets a deal in the neighborhood of what Tyler Anderson got from the Angels a couple years ago. Good pillow contracts for him. And the Padres now are on the clock as far as the team we're watching to make some trades out of that starting rotation and in that bullpen. Keep all your eyes right now on that San Diego Padres system because they're going to be making some moves over the next couple of days. Appreciate you guys joining us. Hit that like and subscribe. We'll see you guys tomorrow night. Stay safe out there, everybody.